So in this video, what we're going to focus on is getting our partial mesh BGP and VPNv4 peerings set up and all that good stuff. So as this is right now, what we have is a bunch of full mesh configuration set up right now. So that means everybody's connected to everybody else. So what we're going to do is we are going to set up R7 is going to be our route reflector, and the reason why he's going to be the route reflector is because it's just the way that I feel like doing it. Now, normally you would say, well, let's make R10 because he's got connections to everybody, but I don't want that to be the case. I want it to be R7. We're going to make him the route reflector and the VPNv4 route reflector, and go through and get everything set up. And then in upcoming videos, we'll get everything else set up, like our load balancing for different features and stuff like that going to get routes going across. So to set this up, but the first thing, well, so my thing will pop up. There we go. So to set everything up, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go in and we are going to first on 6 through 11, we're going to blow BGP completely away. So how would we do that? Exit out of here, type in no router BGP 65000. So that's going to take BGP away, and I'm just going to creep up just a little bit here and copy and paste that into 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11, and that'll take care of that. Normally, I would never recommend going with a full mesh BGP configuration, but it served its purpose for what we were going through. And then again, it's one of those things where, as you're going through your preparation, you should be just as fluent and as I guess fluent would be the best way to put it. You should be as knowledgeable in your configuration with full mesh BGP as you are with a partial mesh BGP, and go from there. So we're going to do that and get everything situated. And so BGP should be coming down here momentarily on all these routers, which it looks like it has. So what's the next step? Well, the next step is we are going to go to router 7, and this is where all the hard work comes from. Because on router 7, if you're not familiar with route reflectors, basically all you're doing is you're taking a bunch of a single router and you're hosting the control plane on that router. So basically you're telling all of the other routers, okay, you're going to basically act as an OSPF designated router. So and if you're familiar with OSPF DRs, basically what ends up happening is everybody forms a full neighbor relationship with the designated router. And the idea with OSPF is if you can solve the shortest path tree to the designated router, you have at the same time solved the shortest path tree to all the other routers in your broadcast domain, or on that shared segment, because that's the only time that the DR is used, right? So the idea with BGP and the route reflector, same basic situation occurs, where you have one router that is going to make all the decisions. So who's going to be connecting to who, all that type of stuff. And then R8, 9, 10, 11, and 6 will just form a single peering. So R6 will say 7, 11 to 7, 10 to 7, so on and so forth. And then 7 will just come in here and say, we're just going to form a neighbor relationship with all these guys and go from there. So the peer group, the update source, all that type of stuff will be done on R7 and only on R7. So you don't have to do anything fancy with it. As long as one side does it, you should be fine. So on R7, we're going to type in router BGP, and we're going to type in 1.65,000 just to make it interesting. And 1 dot, we're just going to have it set up as that. So we're going to type in we're going to say neighbor, and we're going to say 10.100.6.6. But before I do that, should we use a peer group? And I always vote for peer groups. For peer groups, it's better to keep everything operational. So we're going to say I will say MPLS peers. Just make it easy, and then peer group, and then hit enter. And then what we have to do now is we have to come back here and we have to type in the command. So we're going to type in remote AS is going to be 1.65,000, and then the update source is going to be loopback 0. And now, when you're dealing with this, you have to put the route reflector for the global BGP setup in global BGP as well as VPNv4 BGP, because you're going to be doing two separate peerings. You're going to be doing a iBGP peering, and then you're also going to be doing a VPNv4 peering. So you're going to have to set up the MPLS peers, and you're going to have to say route-reflector client. Okay. Now what we can do is we can type in neighbor and type in 10.100.6.6, and peer group is going to be MPLS peers, and hit enter. And then all we have to do now is just go in here and backspace out and type in the IP address of all of our neighbors. So it makes it very, very simple to set this stuff up. Now, one thing I recommend you doing, if you're going to be going through and setting it up like this, and you've only got a few routers, it's not really that big of a deal to go through and set everything up this way. I wouldn't really spend a whole ton of time trying to go in a notepad and set this stuff up, unless you're like a friend of mine actually does this all the time. He goes in here and he's just he prides himself on knowing the commands off the top of his head, to where he can literally look at a lab. So he'll go online, he'll download a lab from somebody, and then he'll go in, he'll look at the lab, and he will look at the tasks, and without even looking at the initial configurations, he will build it from scratch. He'll build the entire lab from scratch, and what he'll do then is he'll copy and paste the commands in, or the initial configuration in, and then he'll copy and paste his commands in. And obviously, whatever he's already previously configured was basically duplicate of the initial configurations. Obviously, don't take because they're duplicate, and he gets it up and running. It takes him about half hour, 45 minutes to write the entire lab, and he goes through and he's really, really quick. And he's able to knock out the lab in about 2 hours, and he spends the rest of the time verification and tweaking different things. Obviously he doesn't go into the nitty-gritty details. He gets the bulk of the work done in Notepad, and then he copies and pastes it in. So here we are. We have 6, 8, 9, 10, 11. So 6, 8, 9, 10, 11. And then we're going to go to 6, and we're just going to go to BGP, and we're going to type in router BGP 1.65,000. And then we're just going to type in neighbor and 10.100.7.7. Remote AS is 1.65,000. And that's all we have to do. So we should get it appearing up here momentarily, as long as we have an IGP route. I didn't take OSPF out. All I did was take out BGP. And there we go. Now remember what I said. You only have to have the updated source on one side of the connection. That's why I'm not doing it here. So then we're going to go to 8 and do the same thing. So actually, you know what I can do here? This is the one beautiful thing about doing this stuff right here. You can type in do show run pipe section BGP, and you can literally just take this command right here. Now, one of the things that I get questions asked a lot about, why does this show up the way that it does? Well, the reason why you got this coming up, and I'm going to actually copy this in, is BGP. And if you look at the very top here, you'll see AS notation, and we'll type in AS notation, and we have dot. And the reason why that's doing that, if we do a show run BGP, now it shows up at 1.65,000, because the fact that we've flipped over from the 2-byte autonomous system to the 4-byte autonomous system number. So we're just going to copy this information right here into 8, and right click and paste. And same thing with 9. 10, and then 11. So we go back to 8, and he should be forming. 9 should be close, and 10 should be right behind him. 10 is already up. 11, and beautiful. So we go back to 7. But we are all formed. So if we jump out of here, do a show IPBGP summary. We have a bunch of peerings up to all of our peers. So 6, 8, 9, 10, 11. We're good to go there. Everything's in good working order as far as I'm concerned. So now what you could do is we could go to VPNv4 and set all that stuff up. That's up to you on how you want to do that. Now, one of the things that I didn't show you in the previous videos is when you're dealing with the route target export values, to where when we get a little more complicated scenarios, you could actually put the, for instance, there's actually a way to do this. Type in router BGP or router BGP 1.65000. Don't ask me why I type in 5 twice. You could actually do this no default no default. No, I'm sorry, no BGP default. No BGP default IPv4 unicast. What this command will do is it will automatically I'm sorry, I should say repeat that. I'm sorry. It will not automatically try to negotiate an IPv4 peering. So what that means basically is when you set it up like that, when you type in no BGP default IPv4 unicast, normally what ends up happening is BGP will automatically try to set up a IPv4 unicast BGP peering. Now, what this basically will do, and this is where I'm going to start going with this. So basically from here on out, wherever I can, and it'll be a little bit of it'll be a little clumsy and some kludginess here and there, but basically the idea that I want to start going through here is when I'm setting these scenarios up and getting the labs operational and running through these videos, I want to be doing them with the intention of doing an IPv6 deployment. So what that means is, if I hit this, what's going to end up happening is I'm going to have to go through and set up all of my connections so that they are under the address family IPv4. So what this means is, if we were to exit out, if we were to do this, we have an address family option here. We have a bunch of stuff here. We have IPv4, 6, layer 2 VPN, VPNv4, VPNv6, route target filter, NSAP, which is I believe this is ISIS. But you have all these options: IPv4, and you have multicast VPN, multicast, unicast, BRF. We're going to spend the majority of the time ourselves in unicast. When we get into multicast, we'll talk about address with BGP with address family IPv4 multicast for advertising multicast peers across the network, so that basically it eliminates the static M routes. So there's that capability there. So we're going to type in unicast, and then we're going to say, and the BRF, if we want to specify a BRF, but we're not going to be doing that right now. And then you can do all of your specific information. So now notice that neighbor commands here and all other good stuff is there. So what I did was I basically said no default command there. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to here, I'm going to type in no BGP default IPv4 unicast. So basically what we're going to have to do now is, it's not going to form a neighbor relationship by default through IPv4. So the best thing for us to do, and this is where I'm going to copy this into everywhere we go, is the reason why I'm doing that is because we want to make sure that we're going address family wherever we can. So that whether we're doing EIGRP, OSPF, RIP, BGP, we're always going to want to do it via the address family. So you get into a routing process, you're going to want to jump to an address family. We're not going to do the router OSPF. We're trying to get away from classic mode as much as I can, and go from there and get everything operational that way. So same thing with 9 and 10 and 11. I think I have to clear on 7 and clear IP BGP star. Alright, so if I do a show there, okay, the routes are back up. So I wasn't sure if I had to do that through the address family or not. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to global config, and I'm going to pull up some documentation real quick because I'm not 100% sure off the top of my head if my thought process is, since I'm doing the no BGP default IPv4 unicast, do I have to do all my commands from the global process, or do I have to do them from the address family? Now, you should know how to do both, and we're going to cover both. But I just want to for clarification, I'm going to check on something real quick. Okay, just a real quick bit that I just did a find in my documentation that I've got downloaded. But they enter the no BGP default IPv4 unicast. So basically what it says is routing information for the v4 unicast address family is advertised by default for each BGP routing session configured with the neighbor remote AS router configuration command, unless you configure the no BGP default IPv4 unicast router configuration command before configuring the neighbor remote AS command. Existing neighbor configurations are not affected. That's why we didn't see like a graceful restart. So I came down a little bit farther, and it says right here, it's address family IPv4 multicast. Now it says the unicast keyword specifies the IPv4 unicast address family. By default, the device is placed in configuration mode for IPv4 unicast if the unicast keyword is not specified with the address family IPv4 command. So when you type in router BGP, whatever autonomous system number, it brings you to this level right here. So we're at this level right now, but since I've typed in no BGP no BGP default IPv4 unicast now, what we should do is from now on we should type that in, and then we should go to the address family level. So if we were trying to configure a BGP connection now, say for instance to where am I? There it is. So if we were to do, say for instance, between R8 and R14, which was BGP to begin with, what would end up happening is, if we were to say form a peering, since that one's already there, if we were to form a peering between 7 and 5, so let's do that real quick. So let's pull this guy up. We'll go to 7, and we're going to type in, since the VRF is there as well too. So let's do just thinking here off the top of my head. My thought process basically is I want to try a different router to get this operational. So let's do a connection between, since we know we don't have anything going on. 6 and 5 is RIP. Oh, we had to do it from 7 to 5. No, we don't. We could do it from 6 and 5. So we're going to do on 6, since we have that no BGP default IPv4 unicast. On R5, we're going to go here and we're going to type in global router, this guy, and router BGP 2.20, and we're typing no BGP default IPv4 unicast. Now what we have to do is we type in neighbor. We could still form the neighbor relationship, but I don't believe it would form because of the fact that we had turned off the IPv4 process. New neighbors would have to get done underneath the address family. So address family IPv4 unicast. I type in neighbor is going to be 65.0.0.6 remote AS is going to be or maybe not. Maybe, I guess, am I incorrect on that? Exit neighbor 65.0.0.6 remote AS. Yeah, I guess I'm wrong. Okay, that's cool. Now this could be an iOS XE thing, but I think it's a BGP thing. Where if I was to type in 1.65,000 and then go to router 6 and then do a neighbor and 65.0.0.5 remote AS is 2.20. Since I'm forming off the directly connected neighbor, we should form a peering. momentarily anyway. Unless we have to activate it. Do we do the same command on this guy? I don't believe we did. Yes. So you know what? I bet you what we need to do is we need to go activate it. So on here we'll type in address family IPv4 Unicast. We'll type in neighbor 650006 activate. And do the same thing on 6. Type in address family IPv4 Unicast and then neighbor 650005 activate. I bet you that'll kick it into play. We'll see here in a minute. Hopefully less than that. Now, one of the things you can do here too is you can set the advertisement interval to be this guy right here, the advertisement interval. Advertise. Yeah, there's a lot of advertisement interval is going to be, we'll say, is 15 seconds. Now, what this does is this is not the timer's interval. This is different. This is how often it's going to advertise routes out. So now I could actually go to the beginning, or go to the end of the line, or the beginning of the line, no, and type in timers, or is it BGP timers? Yeah, I think it's exit out of here. BGP timers, BGP, and then you have the keep alive is going to be 30 seconds. The hold time will be 45 seconds, and then the minimum hold time before hold time from neighbor will be 1 minute or 60. Minimum hold time should be less than the configured hold time. But it still hasn't formed appearing yet. If you notice that or not. So, you know why? Because I didn't do router 6 underneath the address family. That is why. I had to do it underneath the VRF. That's why it's not forming. So we'll type in address family IPv4 VRF, or is it VRF? IPv4 VRF, and this one was blue, I think. 1 second here. Do show run pipe section VRF. I can't remember, to be honest with you. Yeah, blue. So address family IPv4 VRF and blue, and then a neighbor 650005 activate. Configure the remote as our peer group first. There it goes. So it wasn't that as I had to peer under the VRF. I forgot about that. So that was kind of a bad example, but at least now you know that if you're going to peer, and everything, unfortunately, everything is configured as such. So, well, for example, I could do between 18 and 17 and make it an iBGP. So let's actually do that real quick. We'll go 17 and 18 because this can be BGP regardless between these guys, and we'll set up EIGR. Let's set up RIP between those two, and we'll go 17 and 18 real quick. So we'll go config T. We'll type in router RIP version 2 no auto, and then we'll type in address family IPv4 Unicast, and is the network command in here? It sure is. And we'll type in and unfortunately you really can't do anything underneath the IPv6 address family because of the fact that you actually configure that at the interface level. So we'll type in network is going to be 187.0.0.0 0.0.0.0. Too many zeros in there. Now, technically speaking, that's still a Class B address, and we're going to go to. We will also do and 18, and there's a question: why am I using RIP? Because it's still a valid protocol. That's really the real reason why I still use it. There's actually a couple of very small companies that I do some side work for that use Netgear, and RIP is the only protocol they can to run on their device. So I use RIP just in a couple of sites. It's very lightweight. They want more. They want dynamic capabilities, and the IGRP, OSPF, ISIS are not available. So they use RIP, and everything's taken care of. So address family IPv4 Unicast, and the network is going to be 187.0.0.0, and we will advertise. Let's see here. Redistribute connected on this guy, and same thing on this guy. Redistribute connected. Go to 18 and do show IP route. We should have a RIP route, or not. That address family might not work. And what I mean by not work is I've never actually successfully gotten it to operate. So let's quickly exit out of here, type in no, or exit out of here. And network 187.0.0.0, redistribute, connected, same thing at 17, exit. And network 187.0.0.0, redistribute, connected, and 18. Oh, no wonder this didn't work. Interface gig 1, no shut. Huh. Imagine that. Oh, we got the routes now. So, there the routes come in. Everything looks good from there, which is good. So now we can go do BGP. So we'll go router BGP, and it's going to be 17.18. And BGP AS notation dot, and then 17.17, whatever. And we're going to type in no BGP default IPv4 Unicast. Oh. And then we're going to type in neighbor is going to be 187.0.0.17. Remote AS is going to be 17.17. And then on 18, or I'm sorry, 17 will do the same thing. Now, since I've actually no BGP default IPv4 Unicast. Now, because it doesn't do this by default, I believe we'll have to go to the address family level and to activate it. As you can see, I don't see anything coming up. And I believe I'll have to go to... So let's go on 17. We'll type in address family IPv4 Unicast and type in neighbor 187.0.0.18 activate. Okay, so it's under the address family mode, apparently. We have to set the remote AS. Remote AS is going to be... Oh. 0.18 activate. See if that does it. I'm not sure if I have to do it on both sides or not. And it may not be here that I have to do it. I might have to do it yeah, see, it's not showing up with the remove private AS. Let's go to over here and type in address family IPv4 Unicast and type in neighbor 187.0.0.17 and remote AS. Yeah, it's going to be activate. So it appears that both sides have to be doing it. Yep, there it goes. So you have to go to global BGP and enter the command, and then go underneath the address family and activate it. So there's no actual configuration at that level. So now let's go back over to, I just wanted to prove that little piece there to you. So now we're going to go back to 7, since we got that set up. Now we're going to go to router BGP 1.65,000, and we're going to type in address family VPNv4 Unicast, and then we're going to type in neighbor, and then the neighbor address, and then the let's do a do show run pipe section BGP, and we're going to grab the peer group, general searching commands not allowed underneath the address family. Okay, alright, so then we have to type in neighbor 10.100.6.6 and remote AS. No, it would definitely be activate. Alright, so that's all we have to do there. And then just go back in 8.8 and 9.9 and 10.10 and 11.11. And then from there, we should be good to go. And then now what we'll do is we'll type in this command. We should be able to type in route reflector client and then invalid command for a peer group member. Okay, so that means I can't have a peer group command. So do show run pipe section BGP. Apparently not. Okay, that took it away. So can I do that command now? Alright, so then I could, oh, you know why? I bet you because of the fact that I have it set up here. So let's exit out of here and go into address family IPv4 and no, and pull this command out. See if that would work. I don't think it's going to. I think it's the fact that I have them all set up as a peer group. That sounded like it did something. Actually, now I need to go under exit out of this one and address family VPNv4 Unicast and neighbor 10.100.6.6 route reflector client. Yeah, see, it's configured underneath the global process, so I'd have to. I don't think I can do this I'd have to go in there and set them up manually. So let's do that real quick. So we're just going to take in and exit out of here and no, and pull this out. That should blow. Alright, so that takes care of that. So then if we were to do a show run BGP, we should have nothing configured because we basically blew everything away. So we type in neighbor and 10.100.6.6 remote AS is going to be 1.65,000, and you type in the update source is going to be loopback 0, and then the 6 it's going to be a route reflector route. Oh, you know why? Because I've said not to use BGP VPNv4. So just out of curiosity, and we'd have to do this and type in address family IPv4 Unicast, and then we'd have to type in neighbor 10.100.6.6 and activate. Do I type in the neighbor command or remote AS? There it goes. Okay, and then so that does that, and then route reflector client under there. So that works, and that's going to bounce it. Then we have to exit out of here, and then address family of VPNv4 Unicast, and then basically copy and paste this information right here. So neighbor 10.100.6.6 activate. So that'll bounce the neighbors again, and then route reflector client. So now, after all that extra commotion and interesting pieces, so show run pipe section BGP. Just for one neighbor, we'd have to set the peering locally. So we get to do the global peering. Then we'd have to go underneath the address family for IPv4 and activate it and use it as a route reflector client. And then we'd have to go to the VPNv4 process and do the same thing. So you'd have to do this over and over and over again. So basically what I would do is I would take this guy and I would go copy all of this and paste, and I would just start whacking out the 6s and replace it for 7, 8, or 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, or 8, 9, 10, and 11, and go from there. So what I will do is I will pause the video while I do that. There was a question that came in while I was doing that, and the question was, is it safer to do it this way, or is it more beneficial to do it just out the up arrow? It's up to you, really. I prefer to do it this way because I think it's quicker. Instead of having to do the up arrow, I think it would move a little bit snappier this way, but you can do it however you'd like. Just remember, when you're in the lab, you only have 5.5 hours. So I look at it like this: if I only have 8.5 or 5.5 hours to configure a very, very large topology, I'm not going to want to sit there and think about what I'm going to have to type. I'm just going to want to have to type it in and go from there. So actually, one of the cool things you could do here is, I'm just thinking about this, is just copy and paste this and just do this and over and over and over again. Speed the process just a little bit. You will have Notepad in the lab, from what I've been told, which I can't see why they wouldn't give you Notepad. It'd be really dirty if they didn't. And then that'll get that one, and then just pull this guy out for 11 and go from there and just copy and paste this in. Because at the end of the day, you've got a lot of configuration to do, and from what I've heard from the V5 lab compared to the V4 lab, for people that I know have taken both, it's V5 is a lot bigger. That's why I moved to much larger topologies, because of the fact of the sheer size of what we're going to have to do. So, that only took me a couple of minutes. So, would you rather spend your time up arrow and maybe misconfiguration, or make sure you've got all your ducks in a row and everything's good to go, and go from there. Now, what I haven't done here is I haven't set up the route distinguishers, the route targets, or anything like that. I haven't gone in and get any of that operational. And there's often a lot of talk. Do you do the VRF configuration first and set your route distinguisher and your route targets, or do you go in and do you configure BGP and VPNv4 first? Well, it's up to you. It depends on the lab. If the lab goes in and you find out that there's a ton of BGP already done, or you don't have to do any BGP. Maybe it's already been situated for you, and all you have to do is go in and maybe a couple minor tweaks. It's one of those things where you have to do a quick show run in the core, see what you got to do. I can't answer that question for you right now because of the fact that it depends. But in my case, if we know that we're going to be going VPN or dual stack everywhere, so V4 and V6, it only to me makes sense to get the bulk of the commands out of the way first. So that's why it's recommended to read the lab end to end. So right before I ever do a lab, I always read it end to end. So what I'll do is I'll draw it out. Usually what I'll do is if I can find a piece of paper that's big enough, I'll try to trace out what the topology looks like. So I'll take this topology, and I might not be able to get it all in one section, but I'll take a piece of paper, like a regular piece of like 8.5 by 11. I'll stick it up on the screen, and I'll just draw where the routers sit and how they're physically laid out. And then I'll go in and I'll slide it over to the right side of the screen, and I'll try to take this and I'll try to make it, a little bit smaller like that. And that's a bad example, but I'll try to get it to fit all on this bigger picture, fit into a smaller area. And then what I'll do is I'll write down in the major area. So if it's going to be an area-based configuration, I'll type in area 0 authentication. This is the password. If I'm going to be doing a lot of redistribution, okay, I'm going to know. When we get to redistribution, we'll talk about how, if let's say for instance, this right here is EIGRP. This right here might be RIP, and this right here could be all OSPF. So as we're talking about how this would actually play out, as we're going through, when something gets redistributed here, it'll be this administrative distance. This one's going to be this administrative distance after it gets redistributed. If you're going to have this route coming back in, it's potential it could get looped, things like that. So you should be able to identify where any points of issue might come into play. But that comes with time, and we'll talk about that later on down the road. But just from my experience with the labs that I've done, you have to read what you got to do first. It's really hard to just answer that question, and I know I've given you kind of a roundabout answer, but it's honestly it's what it is. Because I can't tell you, just go ahead and knock out your BGP stuff, because BGP might be like 95% done. But then again, when you're setting it up, you have to be cognizant of V4 and V6 at the same time. So when you're using BRF definitions, you have to make sure you go in and set up IPv4 address family and address family IPv6. Because when you're doing your BGP stuff for VPNv4, VPNv6, you need to make sure that both are set up. So that's one of the things we're going to spend some time on later on is both VPNv4 and V6, because that still is a little foggy to me. I'm pretty strong in the V4 side, as you can probably tell. I mean, I'm comfortable with it. I need to get comfortable with V6 as well, and I need to get comfortable with V6 multicast and V6 quality of service. Which there really isn't anything, no such thing as V6 quality of service. There's like making sure you classify V6 ACLs and prefix lists and things like that for matching. But there's going to be specific things for like control plane policing. And for security, that's V6 related, but for like router, the neighbor discovery and the router advertisements and things like that. But that'll come with time. We'll talk about that going down the road later on. But as you can see, we have a lot for to get operational here, and so we're set up right now for, and I'm just going to put in. I'll just type in route reflector here at the moment, and that should take care of that. So we'll minimize ribbon. So that's that for the time being. So we're just gonna save that as such. So we're good to go for right now. In the next video, we're gonna start taking a look at getting BGP multipathing working, and I'm hoping that by the end of today, and it's actually like really late at night, like 4 in the morning, we'll go ahead and get BGP operational. I'm sorry, MPLS operational. Why does it always do? It's been doing that lately. I don't know why. I wanted to go away after a certain period of time. So there it goes. So we'll get MPLS operational and go from there and see exactly what we need to do to get that going for partial mesh. Since we already have to me the hard part's already been done, getting all the BGP stuff in, but that's just for VPNv4. There's obviously a lot more commands to it than just that, but that will come with time, and then we'll get into MPLS, getting different route targets. Because my goal now is to now we moved away from the full mesh. What are some of the other options we have? So if we were to do full route target implementation, how is that going to work? And how's that going to look? And it actually makes it a lot easier when you do it this way, because then R7 is going to be what do you call it? R7. Actually, let's take a look at the global the routing table for R7, or the show run pipe section BGP. It's gonna be a lot. As you can see, there's a lot here, and you have to do this in order to get everything to come in and operate correctly. So we have 3 commands for every neighbor relationship for VPNv4. So as you can see, that's what, 20 lines, 25 lines of config, and that's just one router. So I mean, BGP can get quite hairy quickly. So that's why you have to be familiar with how it operates. That's why we're testing these things out. So like I said, I'll walk you through as much testing as I can and think about this stuff as I'm going through and getting stuff set up. So hopefully all these long-winded videos you see me, figuring stuff out and going, oh yeah, that's right, or oh, I didn't know that. Hopefully you guys are learning from this, and the videos are worth your time. So maybe I was trying to say something else too at the same point. So, but anyway, since we're gonna have full mesh of connections and stuff like that, we're gonna be taking a look at how that all gets put together. Because I'm actually really itching to get into DMVPN, because I really want to start playing with that. Since we already got these connections here, I'll do some BGP, some basically take what I did here and map it over here. Do like one EIGRP, one BGP. Because the idea is to have multiple connections, so we'll have like a backdoor route connected in and all kinds of little fun stuff. So I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.